Welcome to another edition of the Royal Alliance UK podcast. My name is Matthew Turner, alongside co-host Stephen Collins and Anthony Fitzpatrick to join us shortly. Steve, it's been a while, man. How you doing?
I'm all good, thank you. I'm revived from some excellent football watching. Without the stress of the Lions, I can just relax and enjoy some quality NFL.
I mean, it absolutely has been quality, but I don't know how you are as a neutral, but for me, I like seeing a good game. But sometimes, quite often, I'll pick a team that I actually want to win, and then, although it's not as stressful as watching the Lions, it still gets stressful watching that team wanting them to win. I don't know if you've been feeling that, because divisional and conference games, all within 3 points or overtime, has been fantastic.
Yeah, I think I get this from my late granddad. So I used to watch a lot of sport with my late granddad as a kid, and my granddad, he would always have a favourite. Like he could be watching snooker, darts, ice skating, anything. He would be like, "Oh, he's brilliant. Oh, he's a dick." And I think I get the same. Like I always have to. It doesn't matter what I'm watching, even if it's just two teams that I like. I always end up like, picking a favourite. And like the Rams and the 49ers was a good example because I like both teams, but in the end I supported the Rams because of Stafford and because I think Shanahan's a slightly bigger dick than McVay. That was my rationale.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know whether it's true. I think it must be true, but I kind of find it unbelievable. Someone tweeted earlier that the Sean McVay tree of coaching is now going to produce a Super Bowl winner faster than the Bill Belichick school of coaching, because either Sean McVay or Zach Taylor's going to get one, and Zach Taylor comes from his own tree. I find that crazy, but there we go.
I mean, let's face it, the Bill Belichick tree of coaching hasn't exactly been prolific. Matt Patricia.
Yeah, right. I mean, I guess the best one outside of Bill has been Bill O'Brien, probably, who's going to end up being potentially the coach of the Jags, I think.
Maybe Vrabel?
Vrabel to be seen, I guess. Long tenured coach, maybe.
Yeah,
Vrabel's had what? Vrabel's had 3 seasons?
Yeah. But he's kind of he seems to overperform. I think I'm sure you talked about it a bit last week, but the Titans always kind of felt like they were. I mean, the fact that the Titans were the number 1 seed in the AFC, they kind of overperformed.
Yeah,
and I think they got found out in the playoffs.
I think it's a shame because I think that when it comes down to it, looking at the NFL and the fact that everyone says it's a passing league, I actually get great joy from watching some of the good running teams. So Tennessee, San Francisco, teams I really enjoy watching because they play in a completely different way. And much as I hate it, the Patriots have kind of been that way for some time too. But it always seems as though those teams fall at the hurdle where you have teams like the Rams and the Bengals who are clearly air passing offenses, and at the end of the day, and the Chiefs too, you can run the ball as much as you want, but you could get up 7 or 10 points, and that can be wiped out in half a minute, 40 seconds, if you've got an offense firing all cylinders against you.
And obviously, we're going to see a bit more of the Belichick coaching tree because it looks like Josh McDaniels has got a head coaching job at last.
Well, let's hope he holds it for more than a day before deciding to go back to New England. I say let's hope. I really don't give a shit. But, I think it would be hilarious for him to go, "Oh, I've made a terrible mistake again."
Yeah, it was Indianapolis, wasn't it, that he bottled out of?
He bottled out of Indianapolis, and look what's happened to them since. I know they've been a bit iffy this year, and they made a bad trade for Wentz, but that team is fantastic. They are in a window right now, and if they can get a quarterback who's not awful, they should be right up there, but, so McDaniels missed out on that. One Pro 4 said Pickett has skipped hand measurements. I thought that he was just getting some practice in before getting his hand measured, but we'll see. Just want to say hello to everyone in the chat. Actually, loads of people on Twitch, which coincidentally is the place where we're making a mark recently. We have recently become a Twitch affiliate, which means that we can now accept subs. So I'm not angling for it. If you guys want to do that, we gratefully accept. But it's just cool to kind of have enough followers now that that's even possible. If any of you guys do have Amazon Prime, you do get a free sub per month, and you have to keep doing it each month. But that isn't going to cost you anything. If you're not currently using that, then that would be really cool to take some money from Bezos and put it in our pocket to, well, pay for everything that we're doing here. The running costs of this actually are far beyond what I thought they were going to be coming into this. So,
I don't come cheap.
Derek, you legend. He has subscribed with Prime. Thank you, my friend. That's fantastic. First subscriber is in there. Love it. Michael Banks is in the building as well on YouTube. He's going for Detroit Lions' biggest fan. Urge you guys to go up and have a look on his Instagram or Facebook and go and vote for him. I think it might be the last day today for that. Maybe he'll correct me if I'm wrong. Do go and have a vote for him. Yes, Hall of Fans. He was nominated by Megatron himself. The video for that's really, really cool. Met him when I was out in Detroit actually for Thanksgiving, and he's a really, really sound guy. So please do that. One Pro 47. When's the Senior Bowl? That is on the 5th of February. So that is on Saturday. And there's practices starting from tomorrow, which is a really fun bit. The practices are what it's all about. The one-on-ones. No one really cares about the game. Anyway, hit up our Discord channel. Become part of what we're doing there. We chat all the way through the year, talking about the draft or the games or life and everything in general. DM us on Twitter for a link to that, or I'll probably tweet one out at some point soon. College Football Podcast has been going on all this time. We're going to do a little snippet of what's happening for the Senior Bowl later on today. But if you want to hear in depth about who the Lions have got on their team and who's generally playing, the College Football Podcast have been doing some really good stuff in the last 2 weeks, so go and have a listen to that. Otherwise, please do like and sub to the podcast. Spotify now does a rating system, so if you haven't rated us on there, that would be really, really cool. Mike says the vote goes on to February the 6th, so you've got a little bit of time. You can do one a day for that, so that'd be really cool if you can help Guy out. And Lions Nation Unite, we are a part of them. I got my t-shirt on, which looks really, really nice. The store for Lions Nation Unite is going to be going live soon, and they actually own all of their own printing stuff, so all their designs are going to be really fresh and new and quick to come out, and the quality of it is actually really, really good. Like, I thought it would be, not that I thought it would be cheap and horrible, that's not what I mean, but like, it's surprisingly really, really good. Anyway, that takes care of all of the
marketing slogan. Surprisingly good. Brilliant. You should be in sales. Awesome.
Yeah, thank God I'm an accountant. That would be bad. Thanks again to Derek, man. That I really appreciate that. For the sub. That's really, really cool. Right, let's dive into some Lions news that's been happening over the past 7 days, because it feels like a long time since we were here talking about this stuff. But to kick it off, we did have Penei Sewell named to the Pro Football Writers Association All-Rookie Team. He was the only Lions player to do so, and I really feel sorry for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Riley Patterson, actually. I guess with McPherson as kicker, you aren't going to get a look in anyway, and I'm not too sad about that. But Amon-Ra comes in as the, one of the best rookie seasons by a wide receiver all time and can't make it into the top into the top two.
Yeah, so Chase would have been picked ahead of him, and Devonta Smith?
I think Waddle.
Okay.
Because Waddle broke the receptions and receiving record for rookies.
Yeah. I mean, he was the Dolphins' only receiver.
Derek Sorry?
I was going to say he was kind of our only receiver for a bit.
I mean, he carried the team for the final 5 or 6 weeks of the season. It was absolutely terrific to see. Derek has just gifted a tier 1 sub to Dan Pask, and Matthew Stafford subbed as well. This is sick. Oh my God. You guys are the best.
We have momentum. This is great.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much. I'm so retarded. No, I don't mean retarded. That's not the word I mean. But I know so little about how Twitch works that there's a hype train going, a level 2 hype train. I don't know what it means.
That's good. I don't think it's as good as the level 3 hype train, but it's better than the level 1 hype train. I think that's what it means.
Right. I'll have to actually do some research into this because it's crazy. Matt Verstappen says you guys are great. Thank you, my guys. That's the coolest. Right. Shook. So I'm going to carry on with what we're doing. ESPN has ranked the Lions rookie class of 2021 as sixth in the NFL, based on PFF's wins above replacement metric. PFF themselves actually ranked the rookie class at fifth. And are you surprised by that? Did you think it'd be higher or lower? I mean, I feel like that we got a lot out of our rookie class, and yet Levi in the second round was a disappointment. I know that the wins above replacement metric looks effectively value above what you would have expected to get from that position. So, like, Saul is better than your standard 7th overall pick, and Amon-Ra is far better than your standard 4th rounder. So that really, really helps in that respect.
I guess if you go back to like the halfway point of the season, like Ryan said, like the Eagles game when we just got like humped and everyone was feeling pretty flat, and that was one of those points where sometimes when things are just really shit and everyone kind of just turns inwards and becomes really self-critical, and the talk around our rookie class, Saul was making mistakes, McNeil wasn't really getting many snaps, St. Brown just wasn't getting open. And it was all kind of fairly negative. And I think we talked way back at the start of the season about the coaching team and Aaron Glenn and how he was going to bring the defense on and what we really wanted to see, that player development. And I think we saw it in the second half of the season. That was one of the most pleasing things, was just the way that the coaches really got around those players and just started to get results out of them. So for me, it kind of feels like one of the biggest success stories and also one of the biggest reasons to be cheerful going into next season is that player development. Because, if you take out some of the injuries and you see that player development through into a second season, wow, we could have some absolute awesome, we could be talking about this draft as one of the best in the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A defining thing. I mean, up
against not much competition, I have to say.
I mean, that's true, but the first year of the Patricia era, not Patricia era, the Bob Quinn era, before Patricia came along, the final year with Jim Caldwell, that draft class had Decker in it and that sort of thing. That was
Quinn, maybe.
Who? Sorry,
no, not Quinn. Diggs, was Diggs in that draft?
I can't remember. I don't know. 2016 NFL draft, Detroit Lions. I think it was 2016. Decker, Ashawn Robinson, Graham Glasgow, Miles Killebrew, Joe Dahl, Anthony Zettel. I like Zettel.
I mean, Ashawn Robinson's about to be playing the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, Robinson always... I really enjoyed watching him play here. He was just a run-stuffing defensive tackle, but I thought he did it really, really well. Glasgow was a mid-third rounder. I mean, we've done really well, actually, out of our kind of mid-round interior offensive linemen over the years. Killebrew as a core special teams player was one of the best in the league at that. Dahl was a good rotational guard for a while. I think that was a really good draft.
But yeah, I mean, I think... we've seen, obviously, Saul and St. Brown are going to be linchpins. We've seen massive flashes of potential in McNeil. And, I think Melifonwu as well, we've seen flashes of potential. So, if we can get Levi injury-free and firing next season, then it could really be a good draft class. But I think we all know the most important draft class is the one coming right up now.
Yeah, it does feel like... So every draft class feels important. But one where you've got 2 first rounders, which sets you up for the 2 first rounders which are coming after that. Like, if we can start stacking good draft classes, that opens your window, right? The defining thing about almost every Super Bowl team is that they stack really good classes. So I have no idea what I've just shared on Twitch, but anyway. So, like, if you have a look at the Rams, they were awful under Fisher, really. They went to a Super Bowl. Oh, Fisher went to a Super Bowl in 99 or 2000. We'll talk about Fisher in a minute, actually. But then, you go on from there, and the Rams under Goff. Goff lost his first 8 games or something in a row. Like that Rams team was awful. I know that they traded up to 1 to get him, but that was a worse team in the NFL candidate sort of thing. And then
2016?
Yeah.
2016, yeah.
And then a couple of years of exceptionally good drafts, especially later on, built the foundation for that team. You have a look at the Bengals. They've gone from worst in the NFL in a 2-year stretch from 2019 and 2020 to being one of the 2 best teams in the league this season. Maybe they're not in the top 2 teams, but like they're not far off. Like you can't get to the Super Bowl without being a very, very good team. And they've done it pretty much all through the draft and good off-season moves. And you've got to have a good front office staff. And it's consistent throughout all of these organisations. And it looks like maybe we've got one here.
I think one of the most telling things for the Lions is situationally in the NFC North, where we stack against the other teams. And if, it looks like, I don't want to tempt fate, but it looks like we could finally be getting rid of Rodgers, like finally. And if that is the case, then the Lions are a year ahead of 3 teams that are in a rebuild. Because if Rodgers goes, the Packers are all up in the air. We know that the Vikings, are just changing head coach and GM. Same with the Bears. They've imaginatively got rid of Ryan and Matt as their GM head coach combination and replaced them with Ryan and Matt. That's a typically Bears thing to do.
I don't know. I've heard that Matts make really good employees. So
back a house, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Just the ugly hard workers. Like,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, like But it feels like if the Lions get this draft class right, and we've got some cap space, which we know how everyone else in the NFC North has major cap problems. It kind of feels that we're a season ahead, and we really don't want to lose momentum and get dragged into a dogfight in the NFC North. We want to kind of progress, and next season is so important.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, I don't think that anyone's expecting for the Lions to go to the Super Bowl next year, but everyone listening should be under no illusions that the division is very much in play. Like,
if Rodgers is gone, it's wide open.
It's what Minnesota are on the way down from a 7-10 year, 8-9 year, 7-10, I think.
That's the first time they've missed the playoffs, like 2 seasons consecutively for about like 8 years.
That's pretty crazy. The Bears are only getting worse, and okay, so the quarterback could carry them, but the defense, which has been their standard, is going. And I mean, I really think they need. If you were a Chicago fan, I would be saying to everyone right now, we need to embrace the tank for 1 year. Let's trade all the tradable assets we have, apart from the rookies that we have, and maybe a couple of young-ish veterans that we have on our team who can contribute something. Let's accumulate some assets. Khalil Mack might still be worth a first-round pick. He's not going to be... He could be retiring in a couple of years' time. Like, his production has fallen off a bit, and, But a Super Bowl candidate might think that he's worth that. So, cash in, because, like, what are you doing if you're not making a run for a Super Bowl? Chicago cannot win a Super Bowl next year.
Oh, no.
But they could the year after. Like, cash your chips in for picks, use your picks next draft, or this draft if you can trade away some of your assets, and reset. And I'll be saying the same to the Vikings as well. If you want your team to be good in 3 years' time, don't settle for 7-10 every single year between now and then.
I think the difference between the Vikings and the Bears is the Vikings have got a pretty talented roster. They've got, obviously we know about their attacking strength. We know that they've got some good chips in the defense. If their defense is getting a bit old, but still. But the Bears, if you know, other than you've got people like Roquan Smith, who's going to be, you know, an absolute mainstay of that team. But Fields, let's not forget, Fields had a very shaky first season. Okay, he had an appalling offense to play in, but you know he's absolutely not guaranteed to, you know, be great in his second season. I think he's still got at least another season just to kind of get up to NFL speed. And the Bears are in a cap mess. So I think the Vikings, for me, is a more it's a preferable job to taking over at the Bears. I mean, the Bears will be a rebuild now. And, you know, if Packers and Adams and Bakhtiari all go from Green Bay, then goodness knows what's going to happen there.
Yeah,
and let's face it, like the Packers need to sort their special teams out.
Yeah, I mean, if anything needs sorting out, it's that, because at the end of the day, special teams doesn't matter until it's an exceptionally big problem for your team, and then it really, really matters. Dan says on Twitch, we don't know, but it looks like Rodgers will stay and will tag Devontae. There is still a major cap hell, but Rodgers may well be on a rebuilding Packers. So the Packers, if they do tag Devontae Adams, did they tag him last year? Or was he on the end of his contract?
Aaron Jones?
Yes.
Tagged last year.
No, they re-signed Aaron Jones.
Okay.
But so the tag for a wide receiver in the current year is projected to be $19.1 million. So if they tag Devontae, they go from $45 million over the cap to $64 million over the cap. And they were already struggling to get it underneath anyway. I think they could return everyone they currently have under contract for next year, but it would take restructuring everyone to the max, which means a horrific cap problem down the road. Like, what they have right now would not compare. I know the cap's going to go up, but even if that means you'll fit under the cap in future years because the cap's gone up, you've got to think about the fact that all of your competition are going to have that much extra room over you. Like, you might have this team, but other teams can invest and you're stuck. So I can't see that the Packers are going to say, we're going to run it back for one more year and compromise the next 5. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense for LaFleur. I mean, LaFleur is like in his absolute prime now. LaFleur's not like a Mike McCarthy, you know, heading towards retirement. LaFleur is like absolutely in the prime of his coaching life. And I can't see him making a short-term decision just to kind of satisfy Rodgers' ego when, you know, it's going to put him as a head coach in real trouble for the next 2 or 3 seasons if it all goes wrong. Plus, there's nothing to guarantee that they're going to do any better this year, because for me, the Packers' best year was probably 2 years ago. And, you know, they definitely have been getting worse. The defense is you know, struggling to get any pass rush. The offense hasn't looked anywhere near as it was like last season or the year before. So I can't see it being a viable option to try and keep Rodgers and Adams and everyone together for another season. And I can't see the GM Gutekunst going for it. I can't see LaFleur going for it.
I can't see them going for it. And if they do, I mean, so the Packers are a community-owned organisation, right? Their fans own the team. So I can see a scenario where LaFleur goes to the shareholders meeting and says, I am coming to you right now and saying, this year we're going for it again. And the next 3 years, we will be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Please don't fire me. This is the plan. Like, do you know what I mean?
I don't think anyone ever says we're going to be the worst team in the NFL for the 3 years, but...
Okay, but you know what I mean. Like, I think that you can get away with a plan of trying to run it back in this current year if you know what it is that you're losing because of it. Because the thing is, LaFleur, I am buying into his hype. Like, I genuinely think he is one of the top 5 coaches in the NFL right now. The consistent success he's had with that team, a team where, all Rodgers elevates all of that team. It's obviously true, but you don't get that sort of consistent success just by having Rodgers on his own doing Rodgers things. Like, LaFleur has completely changed what that team does. How far away it is from the Mike McCarthy Packers is night and day to me. So LaFleur has got to stay if you're the Packers. And if you want to win a Super Bowl this year, you've got to know what it costs. And it costs a couple of years of being absolute shite. And you have got to stay the course with him and go, I accept it's going to be bad and we're not going to fire you, you know?
But let's not forget that the Packers have spent a lot of time punching down in the last 3 seasons because, they've got 6 games a season against the division where, they've been generally getting 5 out of 6 wins. And, the NFC North can't get any worse. It's only going to improve over the next few seasons. And you kind of feel that the Packers don't want to be in a position where they're going into they're postponing a rebuild to go into a rebuild, just as the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings all come out of one.
Yeah, and then at the same time, if they bail on Adams and Rodgers now, does that lessen how long it takes? I'm not sure. I mean, the cap situation will be better sooner, but the caps are well and good. You still need your superstar players, as we well know. And is it just a situation of let's just do it? Let's run it back one more time. I don't know.
And you wonder whether the situation at the Broncos, whether that QB spot has kind of been set up for him in terms of the guy Hackett leaving the Packers OC and going to the Broncos as head coach. I mean, it couldn't be more grooming Rodgers. If they tried, I mean, it definitely sounds like there's something going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, okay, right. Let's there's a couple
let's stop talking about the Packers. It's making me feel nauseous.
Yeah, we don't need to do that anymore. Apologies to everyone if you are feeling ill after the last 5 minutes. I don't blame you. Mike says, we are going to sign Devontae Adams. That's an interesting thought. I mean, if we've got, say, $25 million to spend, would you want a starting safety and a re-signing Charles Harris? Or would you take a cheap rotational piece and Devontae Adams? Like, having Adams along with Amon-Ra could be really fun. I mean, it's never happening. Adams is going wherever the Rodgers is going. Like, I don't think that's changed. But as a simple in your head dream, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any top 10 free agent is going to come to Detroit at the moment, because I still think we're probably 12 months away from being attractive in a, competitive in the playoffs kind of way. But I certainly think that a free agent, who maybe not in the top 10, but someone that's got a lot to give, all of a sudden the Lions is looking like a better landing spot.
Yeah, that's fair. Right. With the Saints head coach Sean Payton resigning, Aaron Glenn is going to interview for the head coaching role. Now, it's, disheartening to hear that they want to interview him. We don't blame them for doing so. It doesn't look like he's their number one candidate right now. So the Saints look like they are set to probably appoint their defensive coordinator, whose name escapes me. Dennis Allen seems to be the leading candidate. But, I mean, they know what he's all about, and they know who Aaron Glenn is, and they're still bringing him in for interview. It could be a Rooney Rule thing, but it presents
Was Dennis Allen Aaron Glenn's boss last year?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that I can't see that would be awkward.
Yeah, I don't disagree. That would be definitely very awkward, but it's happened. It's not like it hasn't happened before. Anyway, Aaron Glenn, I know that they have requested a head coaching interview with him. I don't think it's taken part just yet. The Lions are one of only 3 teams eligible for Hard Knocks in the coming season. The Jets and the Panthers are the other 2 teams. They're the only 3 that can be forced to do it. but other teams can volunteer if they want to. And talking about teams that volunteered, it happened only in 2020, most recently, with both LA teams volunteering to do it. So there is precedent for teams wanting to do it, but that seemed like a special case. And looking at those three teams, the Panthers are no one. It's a burning organisation in a small market. They're not.
I mean, that's like a ratings killer, that is.
Yeah, no one wants to see that. The Jets, I can see they're a rebuilding team in a big market with a young, highly taken quarterback. You know, I can see that. But the love that the Lions have got over the past 12 months for Dan Campbell and the way that we've gone about things this year, especially with the upcoming draft happening, I kind of feel like that we should be favourites to be forced to do this. I feel like the NFL would think it's a really cool thing to do. Do you want it to happen? Do you agree?
I kind of have lost my faith that it's something that is kind of like decided by the NFL gods. I think it's more a case of the marketing men get together in a dark room and come up with a plan. And I kind of wonder, you know how they did the kind of the two LA teams together? I wonder whether they will do the two New York teams together this season.
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting thing to do. Definitely. But yeah, that Giants team's just
possibly the worst team in the NFL.
No hope at quarterback. He's not redeemable. The head coach has just been fired because he's a piece of shit. They've signed a load of really bad players to big contracts, which means that their future is bleak as well as their present.
Offensive line is awful.
The offensive line, it's in the name, just saying. Their defense is good, though. Like, their defense actually shows up week on week. I think that their offense is so bad, it exposes that defense to too much time of possession and, quick turnovers and that sort of thing. But when they're actually given a chance, I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder whether Barkley leaving the Giants will be one of the big stories of the summer.
Yeah, I agree. Right. Here's one for you. Tom Brady hasn't retired. There was a big outpouring of emotion when the announcement came that he had retired. I know our own Ryan on the Detroit Lions Fans UK One Pride Worldwide put out a really nice post saying basically that he was his favourite player outside of the Lions. The kind of inspiring, made everything seem possible, especially for some old guys too. Like,
that seems like an internal disciplinary issue that we need to sit down with Ryan and get him to revoke these views.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I always admired Brady for what he was able to achieve, even though I absolutely hated his guts. But I did feel a sort of special kind of pang in my heart, like an era had ended. That he was the last great quarterback out of Rivers and him and Roethlisberger and Breeze and Manning and all of these guys, and Brady's the last one standing. And that, that era had now died. And it made me sad. I'm not going to lie. And the news that he hasn't quite decided to go yet kind of gives me some hope. I kind of want to see him run it back again. I don't want him to go yet. I'm not ready.
I think, I just can't stand the Patriots. Just cannot stand anything about the Patriots. And I felt that way for the last, 10 years or so.
FTP.
But absolutely. But I think I definitely warmed to Brady considerably the minute that he left the Patriots and arrived in Tampa Bay. And, now he's kind of like out of the shackles of the Patriots. He seems quite a funny guy. His social media stuff is pretty funny. He's quite self-depreciating kind of sense of humor. And he's just absolutely balled out for the last two seasons. Like this stuff about his arm having like a Drew Brees arm is just utter rubbish. Like, the guy can absolutely throw a bomb still.
And you just have to watch his very final touchdown in the comeback loss to the Rams, and it's an absolute dive from like 40, 50 yards away. It's cracking.
I think it all hinges on Arians. I wonder whether Because I know that Arians has been talking about retiring, and I think if Arians goes, Brady will go too. I don't think he will want to see in like another head coach, but I kind of wonder whether Brady's almost waiting to see if Arians is going to run it back.
I mean, when the news came out that Brady was retiring, there was a leak that apparently Arians had told the entire coaching staff that they were free to pursue new roles. And it's like, oh my god, this is blowing up big time. Like, they are just cutting bait with everyone and going into the tank. And then, obviously, Brady hasn't gone, so none of this is real. Like, it's just people panicking about it.
Well, I think Byron Leftwich must have a really good chance of getting one of the head coaching jobs. I know he was one of the favourites for Jacksonville. I'm not sure.
I think he is still the favourite for that role.
Yeah, just because he was one of their top draft picks and played for them in his early career. So if Leftwich goes, and I can't think of the other coordinator's name. It kind of feels like there's going to be like a big change. But
Todd Bowles, isn't it?
Todd Bowles, yeah. So again, Bowles has been interviewing for a couple of seasons now. So we'll have to see what happens. But it kind of feels if Leftwich gets the job, how does that impact on the rest of the team? And it kind of feels like there's a lot of dominoes waiting to fall. But I think Brady's kind of probably having a couple of weeks to think about it.
Yeah,
but
I'm so torn about it because it feels like a Harlem Globetrotters type team, that Tampa team. Like, they're just elite everywhere and deep.
I love their defense. I absolutely love it. Some great players: Devin White, Sean Murphy-Bunting. There's just some absolute animals in that team, and obviously, the kind of front they've got with like Sue and just some absolute beasts in there. I think if that team does break up, the NFC South is going to be absolute garbage next season because the Panthers are terrible. The Falcons are just in no man's land.
Yeah.
And the Saints kind of feel like we're in rebuild territory.
Yeah, they really do.
I'm sad to see Sean Payton go.
Yeah. I mean, I know that a lot of people think that he's an absolute tosser. Like, he has this sort of rep of just being an arsehole, especially with the whole
Bountygate?
That's the one, Bountygate. I was trying to remember the name of the bloody scandal. So, I mean, it's a really wanky thing. But as a coach, as a head coach, to watch his teams play was just fun. And you have a look at what happened with their quarterbacks this year. The play they got from them was absolutely amazing. And it's why on the last episode I highlighted their quarterbacks coach as one of our leading contenders for offensive coordinator. If we look outside the organisation, we absolutely should look at the Saints quarterbacks coach, because just have a look at what they were able to achieve this year with people that really thought their careers were over.
I mean, Trevor Siemian. I mean, when you're taking snaps with Trevor Siemian, and I think he won a couple of games. I mean, that's quite impressive.
Yeah, he did win a couple of games, and actually, let's see if I can get onto
what is going on with the Lions OC coach? That's OC role. That seems to have gone very quiet.
So my theory with this is that they are solely focused on the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl is happening this Saturday. Coaching starting from tomorrow all the way through till Thursday. And then the game on Saturday, they're going to get a lot of time coaching up, listening to all of these draft picks, and they figure that is more important than getting a leg up on this offensive coordinator cycle. I think that's what it is. They've just made a organizational decision that the draft is more important this time around. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I also think that they think that Ben Johnson is the guy. That they've already decided that Ben Johnson is the guy. This is his audition. That he's already had half a season doing it with Dan Campbell as a sort of helper, pass game coordinator, and now he gets to be the OC. Can he do it?
And is he going to be the OC for the Senior Bowl game?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
That
so
kind of figures then, yeah.
Deuce Staley's the head coach. He's the offensive coordinator, and then the defensive coordinator is Aubrey Pleasant, which could well be the future Lions coaching staff 5 years from now. I mean, I hope not. I hope Dan Campbell's still there, but it could well be the front three successors.
Yeah, it sounds like it sounds like a bit of an audition for all of them.
Yeah, I think it's really, really cool that they've done this, actually, because it's the first time that the Senior Bowl have actually implemented this idea in discussions with both teams that are actually in it. They're going to promote their assistant coaches to the coordinator roles to give them more experience. I think it's a really great thing. So
I'm sure Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn will be, there in full support, giving them pointers.
It's a condition, actually, of them stepping aside from doing the leading stuff, is that they were actually in attendance and listening to these guys. I can't imagine they would have been anywhere else, because unless some of them were going to go to Las Vegas for the East-West Shrine Bowl, which I think is in a couple of days. So I know that the general manager is there. So our GM is in Vegas while the rest of us are in Mobile. So, we are splitting time. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, final bit of news I've got is the USFL, the Michigan Panthers. Michigan an all but name, because all of the teams are going to be based, I think, in Indianapolis. I'm not sure. The Panthers have hired Jeff Fisher as head coach, which is just
Remind me who Jeff Fisher is. I know the name, but I can't place him.
Okay, so Jeff Fisher was the coach at LA that drafted Jared Goff.
Okay, so he was the guy before McVay 2014, 15, 16?
So he was the Rams coach between 2012 and 2016. He was a draft pick of the Chicago Bears in the 7th round in 1981. He played his
instant black mark.
Yeah, right. He played for the Bears for 4 years. He played out as a rookie deal, and then he retired and became a defensive assistant at the Bears. He then went on to coach in various kind of assistant roles and then coordinator roles for the Eagles, the LA Rams in 1991, the 49ers, the Houston Oilers, the Houston Tennessee Oilers Titans in 95 to 2010. So he was there for a long time as head coach throughout that period of 15 years. So there were the Houston Oilers, then the Tennessee Oilers, then the Tennessee Titans. He saw all of that through. Then he was the head coach of the St. Louis and then LA Rams, 12 to 16. And he's now the Panthers head coach. So just for a season, it's in only but name that they're called Michigan. But following that, I believe that they are going to go to their respective areas and actually represent their states. So, a head coach in the NFL who's had 20 years of experience is now coaching in the USFL, representing Michigan. It's insane. And I mean, so Jeff Fisher was always renowned, at least in the latter part of his career, for being the quintessential 8-8 merchant. He will get you the average team. They won't be bad, it just won't be good. And he was fraught with really bad game management mistakes. Time management, situational football. It was really horrific. And that's why eventually I think he got booted from the LA Rams and Sean McVay came.
I mean, he will have learned that in Chicago.
He played for the 85 Bears.
Oh, wow, okay. I mean, we try and forget about the 85 Bears. We try and remember every Bears team since then.
Okay, that's fair. But if you talk about teams in NFL history that have broken the mold, just being that elite team, you've got the unbeaten Patriots side. Was that 2007? When they lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And the 85 Bears. And I think for me, in recent history, they're the two really special teams in the NFL.
Well, you've got the 70s Steelers as well.
Yeah.
And then
my history doesn't go back that far, unfortunately. I don't know.
Oof, low blow. Well, you got I mean the Steelers in the 70s. I think they won like 3-4 Super Bowls. Then there's the early 80s Dolphins team that went 15-0.
Right? Yeah.
Which I think was Don Shula.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, the 85 Bears, unfortunately.
So, Derek, our number one, our first subscriber on Twitch, we'll just say that to him, preface his name with that every single time he comments, says that Jim Schwartz coached under Jeff Fisher for a long time. So, Jeff Fisher was the head coach of the Titans Oilers organization until 2010. And Jim Schwartz, the soon-to-be Detroit Lions head coach, was a Titans defensive coordinator between 01 and 08, and then became the Lions head coach in 09. So he's part of the
Fisher
coaching tree. Yeah, there we go. And Schwartz, I think, is being interviewed for defensive coordinator, actually, somewhere. I'm sure he's got an interview somewhere. God, I don't recall where. My memory is really failing me. But anyway, let's move on and talk about the NFL season in general. So let's have a look and just take it division by division fairly briefly and have a look at some of our favourite teams in there, the best teams, the worst teams, over, underachievers, any games that stand out to you, or players that you think did very well, or just teams you find fun to watch regardless of their standing. And let's start with the AFC East. So the Buffalo Bills win the division 11-6, just ahead of the Patriots at 10-7. Miami miss out again, plus 500 and 9-8. And the Jets, despite having the second overall pick, fall to a 4-13 record under Robert Saleh. What did he make of the AFC East this year, Steve?
I think I kind of feel we've started at the bottom because I think this was one of my least favourite divisions. I mean, the Jets team was just consistently appalling. And, the whole Zach Wilson thing, just kind of such a disappointing first year in a lot of ways, even though he did show flashes, and he certainly showed some guts in the fact that he was beaten up so badly in some of the games. I think the Brian Flores stuff at Miami has like maybe left a bit of a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths about kind of his treatment and how, again, when so much of the discussion has been around kind of the pressure and the scrutiny that black head coaches get in respect compared to, say, some of their paler compatriots, it just feels like Flores has been handed a very raw deal at the Dolphins when, he won the last 8 games in a row. And there's just been such a murk around the franchise with all the Deshaun Watson talk. It just kind of feels that the Dolphins are very dysfunctional. And it's a shame because, they do have some talent on the roster. And Flores certainly has shown, like in terms of how they finished the season, the potential there. The problem is the Bills and the Patriots are so far ahead. And even though this was like a down year for the Patriots, the fact that they got through to the playoffs and, Mac Jones, much maligned around draft time, just showed what a kind of game manager quarterback can do when he's playing in the right scheme. And, it's amazing to think that he probably played the best football out of any of those 5 rookie QBs that all got picked in the first round. And that's kind of a bit of an indictment in a way of the Patriots and how they play. And yeah, I mean, the Bills is just massively disappointing. They're kind of one of my sort of, teams that I always look out for their results. And I love the Bills. I love their fans. I think they've got a good coaching staff. And, Josh Allen is one of my favourite players to watch in the NFL. And it was just sad that they have come second best again to the Chiefs.
Yeah, I feel really bad for them. I mean, I had wagered on the Bills to win that game, and I did cash out with 13 seconds to go, and thank God I did. But They didn't deserve that. They just didn't. I mean, just play defense for 13 seconds, for God's sake. But I feel you on Miami. It's a set of circumstances that is just really harsh on Flores. And yet, power struggles between GMs and head coaches happen. And
they tend to always end one way, and it's not with the coach getting.
Absolutely. But also, if you have a look at it, Flores banging the table for Deshaun Watson and the GM effectively saying it's not happening. And that, I think, being one of the major divisive points between those two parties, I actually come out on the side of the GM here. Like,
did that definitely happen, though? Is that definitely the way it went down? That it's very heavily rumoured, but
I don't know. If we're NFL Network, I wouldn't be reporting that as fact, but thank God we're not. So I'm saying it's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the Patriots is one of these really weird ones because I don't see them getting better. I don't. I see a team that invested a heck of a lot of money in players that should have played really, really well. And none of them did. Like, if I'm...
What did they finish? Was it 10-7?
10-7. So that was... There's no lying. That was above expectation. Absolutely. Mac Jones played very, very well. Started every game. 67% completion rate, 3,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. You know, that's really good. But you have a look at who they invested in. They invested in Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. Now, Hunter Henry caught a lot of touchdowns, but those are two of the top 5 paid tight ends in the league, but they played the least amount of 2 tight end sets in the league this year. Like, you can't invest that sort of money in tight ends and not run 2 tight end sets. Like, you have a plan, you can't not follow the plan. Like, it's just a waste. Like, it's mismanagement. You have a look at people like who was the wide receiver from the Vegas team? Oh,
Ruggs.
Not Ruggs. Aguilar. They paid Aguilar big money to come over because with Derek Carr, Aguilar was a big play machine. The guy caught 37 passes for 473 yards. It just doesn't make sense. N'Keal Harry continues to be a disappointment with 184 yards. Their top 2 wide receivers are Myers and Bourne, who, that's fine. But unless that team drafts well again this year, they've still got all of that money invested in players I don't think are moving the needle. I think that team is a perennial 9-8, 8-9, 10-7 sort of side that's never going to challenge for Super Bowls. And they don't scare me anymore.
The problem is you worry that 10-7 is a Patriots rebuild. That's what a Patriots rebuild looks like. I don't know. I mean, the fact that they've overperformed with such a seemingly bad team, it just makes me worry about next year because I don't know. I kind of think Belichick still has something.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt if Belichick wasn't there, that team would be doing even worse. I don't mean that. I just mean that where in that team is the quality?
It'd be interesting to see what happens without McDaniels and how they manage that. But I think this has been one of the least interesting divisions for me.
Yeah,
which is a shame because it's traditionally been one of the best.
And well, let's move on to potentially the most interesting division in football this year, the AFC North. And actually, we'll move on because no one wants to talk about the NFC North. No one said anything about the NFC North this year, and it was a really disappointing division that has no Super Bowl candidates that we can speak of. So we'll move on to the FC South.
No, hold up, wait a minute. Hold up.
The North, topped by, I can't say it, topped by the Cincinnati Bengals, 10-7.
Do we need to have a recap for some of the listeners that might have missed it. Let's rewind back to week 5, Matt, and our preview show, and tell me what happened.
We were talking about something, and then Steve comes in with a random take of "Don't be surprised to see the Bengals win the North this year."
I was met with derision. Anthony Fitzpatrick, hold your head in shame. Derision I received from you. I was scoffed. I think it was because we were just previewing the Bengals-Lions game.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I'm not saying, I certainly never thought that the Bengals would get to the Super Bowl, you know, the playoffs at a stretch. But there was just something about the Bengals and how Burrow was playing that just really impressed me when I saw a couple of their early games. And also their defense. Like, I didn't know that the Bengals had a defense. And I just remember all of a sudden there was a lot of hard hitting, the secondary playing really well. They just didn't seem a pushover. And I kind of thought, well, the Steelers I thought were bad this year. And, you know, the Browns have just been really, really streaky and inconsistent. And there's clearly stuff going on there behind the scenes. And the Ravens have just seemed absolutely toothless when Lamar isn't playing out of his skin. So that's why I kind of said it as a bit of a throwaway comment that the Bengals have got a real shot. And, you know, wow, how they have surprised us all in terms of how they've come on through the season and what a star Burrow is. Because, I mean, his footwork, this is a guy who blew out his knee in his rookie season. The footwork that he displayed in terms of in the pocket and also being able to evade trouble. I mean, this is a guy that got sacked 9 times. His offensive line is paper mache. But, you know, he's just so brave in terms of some of the hits he's taken and some of the fact he's been prepared to run when he's had to. He's tucked the ball and he's gone for it. And, you know, the fact he's got 3 of the best receivers in a team in Boyd, Higgins and Jamar Chase, you know, he's exploded that offense into life. And also, I remember a lot of people saying that Zach Taylor was going to lose his job like 18 months ago. And
I was one of those people.
Yeah, look how this guy's progressed.
Absolutely. It's just a lesson in giving a person time, right? I mean, even when sometimes it all looks like it's going to pop, sometimes it is coming together. I mean, if you have a look at the sack numbers, it's unbelievable. Trey Hendrickson, what a free agent signing that is. 14 sacks
Massive.
for him. Sam Hubbard has 7.5 sacks. Larry Ogunjobi has 7 sacks. BJ Hill from the interior has 5.5 sacks. You have a look at interceptions, and Logan Wilson has 4. Chidobe Awuzie has 2. Mike Hilton's been absolutely fantastic. Eli Apple has been confused with someone who can play football, and he's got 2 interceptions. Jesse Bates is arguably up there with the best centers and safeties in the NFL. Like, that defense,
Jesse Bates has been phenomenal in the playoffs. Absolutely phenomenal.
The pass break, I know we'll come on to the championship games. The pass breakup at the end to get the interception in overtime is out of this world. Like, just exceptional play. But the interception he had in the divisional round, I mean, he's a free agent at the end of this year, I think.
Yeah, I think they're locking him up. But yeah, the whole secondary played so well. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Zach Taylor, some of his play calling has been shocking, even in the playoffs. Do you remember was it a 2-point attempt that he called that just all went horribly wrong, and then they got let off with a penalty? It was a fourth down. He went for a fourth down. It was a crazy thing to do, but it got pulled back because of the penalty, and he got away with it. I think that was in the Titans game. There's still, the Bengals are not perfect in any way, and they might get found out by probably a more well-rounded Rams team. But my God, coming out of that absolute pit fight that is the AFC North in terms of some of those divisional games and the atmospheres, and they've just played so well.
I mean, you have a look at the AFC North, and it is a stain on that division that the Pittsburgh Steelers got into the playoffs. I mean, I know. So the entire division was within half a game of 500, or half a game of 500. So all of them did very, very well, considering they've all got to face each other. But Cleveland and Baltimore came behind Ben Roethlisberger, who can't throw a football. Like, he turned up when he needed to right at the end of games, but that Steelers side was awful. They tied against the Lions when the Lions hadn't won a game. I mean, oh my God.
I mean, it's probably one of the NFL's biggest things on their to-do list is what to do about the current playoff format with the seventh team. Because if you look at this year's seventh teams, which were the Steelers and the Eagles, I think we can all, as neutrals, comprehensively say that the Steelers and the Eagles brought absolutely nothing to the playoffs. Absolutely zero. And, that's got to be something for the NFL to think about, because do we really need the seventh best team in the AFC and NFC getting through? I don't know.
No,
so based on this year, absolutely not.
But then in history, you would have said that 6 seeds don't have a history in doing particularly well in the playoffs. I think that I don't think a 6 seed has ever won the Super Bowl.
Not sure.
I can't remember that. I'm sure someone in the chat will correct me there actually and say they have. But the 49ers were the 6th seed in the NFC, and the Patriots were deservedly a playoff team this year, but with the same record as the Bengals and Raiders in the 4th and 5th seeds. Like, I don't know. It's a weird thing about the playoff format. We all know that they want to go to 8 teams. Like, that is the long-term aim. But, and I cannot stress this point enough, one of the things that separates the NFL from the NBA, from the NHL, from the Premier League, is that it has few enough games to mean that every single game matters massively. You lose one game, and that can be the difference. Now, in the Premier League, you lose one game, sure, that can be the difference, but you have 37 other games to make your mark. But when you only have 16 games, one game is 6% of your season. Like, it's huge. And with every single game they add, they might be adding revenue, but there's revenue in baseball. Like, but I don't want to watch 130 games a year, or whatever, something stupid they watch. Like, no one game matters, so why watch any of it? Whereas the NFL, it's all must watch. Like, you have to tune in every week because you can't miss one because it's that important. And if you add games, you lose part of the magic for me.
Yeah, 100%. It's just massive impact and pace all the way through the season. And yeah, it kind of feels. Did we really need a week 18? Probably not. So it kind of feels we're a bit of a tipping point that kind of any more just lessens the offer. But yeah, for me, the Steelers and the Eagles had no place. So just going back to the AFC North, the Bengals could establish an absolute iron grip on that division, because I can only see the Bengals getting better as the kind of roster develops, and I think the Browns are in chaos at the moment. I don't think that they think that Baker Mayfield is the answer. The Ravens are just so kind of like lopsided as a football team, and it just feels like the current setup with Lamar just isn't working, and something's happened to the defense. And I mean, the Steelers, like, I love Mike Tomlin to bits, and he always gets more out of his players, but I really don't know where they are heading at the moment. They need a huge draft.
I think it could come. I mean, just if Howe falls to them, just take Howe, run with that. I think that'll provide you with a good floor. I think that, yeah, I think I can see the Steelers going somewhere, because the thing about this quarterback class this year is it's much maligned. Everyone thinks that, it's not quite as good as it's been in previous years, but people had that opinion on Mac Jones, and I know Mac Jones will probably go number 1 overall in this draft, but it's not the point. The point is that people think less of some draft picks, and they go and surprise you. I mean, even with Jamar Chase, with people saying that he could be a really, really good player, I don't get anyone imagine that he could do what he did this season. Couple of guys just correcting me on my 6 seed assertion. So the New York Giants.
I knew as soon as you said that. I knew as soon as you said that was doomed.
Well, I almost didn't believe it myself when I was saying it. I was kind of hoping that some people would come in and correct me anyway. So the Giants in the Super Bowl that I mentioned against New England in 2007, they were a 6 seed, and Super Bowl 40 in Ford Field with the Steelers winning in Detroit. That Super Bowl, they were the 6th seed, apparently. So there we go. There were 2 even. But there we go. Let's move on in divisions now. And we'll move on to the AFC South, which I actually think is you said that the AFC East is perhaps the most boring division in football. I think this is close. Tennessee Titans winning 12-5. Indianapolis Colts 9-8. Houston Texans 4-13. And the Jacksonville Jaguars 3-14. Right, let's move on.
I think this division has only been interesting purely in a kind of slow motion car crash way. I mean, the Urban Meyer era was just absolutely so embarrassing at Jacksonville, just in terms of how all that went down. And then you've got the Texans, who have kind of actually had a better season than most people thought, because everyone thought they were going to go like 1-15. But having 2 bad teams in the division kind of just killed it. And I mean, the Colts are just so boring. And I think the Wentz decision, if only Phil Rivers had got another season left in him, because I can't see the Titans of winning the division if Rivers was still there. But the Colts just seem to have really fallen off, because last season I thought they were. I thought they could go all the way to maybe like the divisional rounds, and it just didn't happen. The Titans kind of seem to have won the division by default.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the thing is, the most exciting player in all 4 of those teams, Jonathan Taylor, for me, had 2,171 scrimmage yards this year. That's just not real. So, I love that guy. And I really like the Colts as an organization in terms of the way they built their team, what they're about. But until they get a legit quarterback, they're boring as hell. Like, Carson Wentz is not a legit starter. He's just not.
No.
And Trevor Lawrence, classic case of people getting their hopes up about a rookie QB. Not a mark on him, I don't think, for me. Just someone who needed development in the pros being let down by a coaching staff who has never done it in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, but like the Colts have got, again, some really good pieces on the roster, but they've got some like glaring gaps, and I don't think you can stick it on Wentz completely, because the Colts receiving core's not great.
But you've got T.Y. Hilton and Michael Pittman and Zach Pascal, and you've got weapons.
I think the Colts and the Titans are kind of 2 teams that, because their division's quite poor, they always seem to get found out when they get to the playoffs. Yeah. And I think this season, Derrick Henry clearly probably wasn't fit when he came back for that game. He was either rusty or just not quite up to where he needs to be. And it just so happened that Tannehill had a bad game as well. But I mean, at least the Titans are watchable.
But I mean, the thing about that is that they dropped the ball with the running backs, because Donta Foreman, every time he touched the ball, looked like Derrick Henry. Like he was running.
He looked like Derrick Henry as well.
Yeah, he really did. Like, just give Foreman the ball. Like, give Henry another week to just recuperate. Give the ball to the guy who's getting 8 yards a carry. Like, what's wrong with that? Why are you force feeding a guy clearly not fit? I don't get it. And they deserved to lose that game. They really did.
Yeah.
And partially because of the coaching. Anyway, moving on to the last part of the AFC conference, the AFC West. Maybe the best conference in football. It's close. Between the two West divisions, it's really, really close, I think. So, Kansas City Chiefs, 12-5, winning the division. The Las Vegas Raiders, 10-7, getting into the playoffs. The LA Chargers falling short with 9-8, and the Denver Broncos, 7-10. And I mean, the wild thing about all four of these teams is I'm still fairly sure that the Raiders are the worst team in that division in terms of roster. But they always seem really good when I watch them. Like, if I was to pick an overachiever this year in the NFL, the Raiders are up there for me. They lost their head coach mid-season. Their special teams coordinator comes in to take over as interim head coach. And they don't skip a beat. They just look fantastic. Whereas that Chargers team, potentially one of the most talented teams in the NFL. Denver, too, one of the most talented teams in the NFL. The Chargers finding a way to lose to bad teams when they have no right to do so. And Denver just lacking a good quarterback, which obviously may change this year. And then Kansas starting 1-3, becoming one of a few handful of percentage points to actually make the playoffs from that position, and doing it at a canter. I mean, it's a great division.
Yeah, it's been really fun to watch, and I'm just the Chargers are definitely the biggest disappointment in the NFL for me, because I love watching Justin Herbert. I love some of their attacking weapons, but they just found a way to lose so consistently. Just some appalling clock management and in terms of how they kind of manage the game. It was just so bad and just so regularly so bad. And there were so many meltdowns. And you really just felt for Herbert. He's such a good quarterback. I think him and Burrow, if they both stay healthy, are just going to be absolutely, mainstays of the NFL for the next 10 years. There's so much talent in those two guys. And then to see, Derek Carr in the Raiders. I mean, you got to hand it to Derek Carr. Played so well. He totally outperformed. I kind of have him around the kind of Andy Dalton level of QB, and he's just totally overachieved this season. With the Gruden stuff, you'd think they were just going to fall apart, but somehow they kind of made it through. I think the Broncos is kind of sad how that's played out because, the kind of end of the Fangio era, Von Miller traded away, and just a truly terrible quarterback in Drew Lock. It kind of feels that Denver is going to go into some sort of mini rebuild, and you really hope that Rodgers goes there and it just all fucks up.
I mean, what's crazy about Derek Carr is this was his fourth straight year of 4,000 yards or more. It was the most interceptions he's had in his career this season, 14. It was 23 touchdowns. That's middle of the pack for him. So this was a middling season for Derek Carr. But it was only the second winning season of his career. And the season before, 8-8, his completion percentage was a percentage short, but he had 4 more touchdowns, 5 less interceptions. His quarterback rating was significantly higher. I look at Derek Carr, and I see a guy with the thickest skin I've ever seen. I think he's a player very much in the mould of Stafford, actually. I think it's underrated, but the guy takes shots. He stands in the pocket and gets hit and chucks it downfield. He's got an absolute laser for an arm. I mean, the sort of long-range touchdowns he was hitting last year were unbelievable with Nelson Aguilar and Henry Ruggs and what have you. That offense was firing last year. And I just look at the Raiders as a team that have been... I mean, they've suffered by having really bad coaching staffs for years. And he's suffered because of that. But I think if you put him in a solid organisation, he's going to look fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. I think if the Lions did decide to move on from Goff in a year, but didn't want to spend a draft pick, he could be one of those kind of like mid-tier guys. I think we were discussing like Goff replacements, and I remember talking about Tannehill and saying, well, yeah, that's the kind of like middle of the road kind of guy that's achievable for us to get. I think the way that Tannehill played in the second half of the season, I'm kind of backing away from that statement rapidly. But Carr, is just been pretty good. He seemed a pretty good guy. But the Raiders' defense has turned up.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the organization moving to Las Vegas, then heavily trying to get Brady, then heavily trying to recruit Rodgers or anyone that will go there. And he just rocks up every week and just does the stuff. So him in that division alongside Herbert and Mahomes, and then Denver potentially either getting Rodgers or drafting a new quarterback, that division could be an absolute monster for the next decade. It's set up for it.
Big time. And I think we've not really talked about the Chiefs, but I mean, the Chiefs had such an up and down season, like a really good start, and then the middle of the season they just kind of like fell apart. And then, but then they had like a fantastic run at the end. So it kind of feels that Mahomes has underperformed, yet at the same time he's just been so brilliant in so many games, and he's just so casual in terms of some of the stuff that he can do, some of the passes he can throw, the way that he sees the game. His vision is just like unbelievable. I mean, yeah, we'll come into the championship game in a bit, and I think he was absolutely culpable for how they kind of lost out. But at the same time, he's been, again, brilliant. Maybe not at the same heights as last year, but he's still been consistently brilliant. And what a player to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I can't add any more to that, so I'm going to move on to the NFC, and I'll start with the NFC East. Used to be the NFC least, and they decided that they were going to turn it around at least somewhat this year. Dallas winning the division 12-5. The Philadelphia Eagles breaking 500 and perhaps being the surprise of the season at 9-8. Washington football team at 7-10, and the New York Giants at 4-13. And Dak and Dallas were really good until Dak's injury. Dak came back and the team kind of carried him to a good record, and then they were found out in the first game of the playoffs. But a team that I still believe all around in that roster have the ability to go all the way if they can run it back again and again and again. But they can't. Gallup's off. Van Der Esch's off. Key pieces of this team are now going because their window is potentially not closing because Dak's there, and that always leaves it ajar slightly. But the window has closed a little for them.
Yeah, I think they might lose their offensive coordinator as well. I know he's interviewing. The guy looks about 12.
I mean, he used to play for the Lions, right? Kellen Moore, I'm sure he used to play for the Lions.
I'm not sure, but I just know he looks infantile.
Kellen Moore, yeah. Played for the Lions between 2012 and 2014, undrafted out of Boise State.
What position?
Quarterback.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure he was. 6 foot, 200 pounds, so undersized. Then was a quarterbacks coach and then the OC with the Cowboys from 2018. Played for the Cowboys after he left us.
I had him down as a kicker or a punter.
Really? Yeah. I think by all accounts he was like a good guy, a good offensive mind. So
I think obviously the big thing for the Cowboys this season has been the revival of their defense, and Micah Parsons, what a player! Possibly not a very great human being, which was discussed widely before draft time. But what a player! And he has absolutely lit up their defense. And he looks to me like a talent that's going to be, around for the next 6 or 7 seasons, and just like a kind of generational level of production. He looks so good. So he is definitely one of the stars of the season. But the Cowboys are just so flaky, and Mike McCarthy, I've just got no faith in him as a head coach. I didn't when he was at the Packers, and I just can't see him taking that team above mediocrity. I think that their record very much speaks for the crapness of the rest of the division. The Giants have just been god awful. I think we talked about them, just a terrible franchise, possibly one of the worst in the entire NFL. For me, one of the biggest disappointments for me has been Washington, because I think I really thought this would be like a breakout season for the defense, and their defense has been pretty terrible. With like Chase Young, Montez Sweat, I just thought that the defense would dominate so many matches. And obviously what happened with Ryan Fitzpatrick right at the start of the season, and I don't think anyone's wanted to see a full season of Taylor Heineke. But they've got some great pieces on offense. They've got Terry McLaurin, who's a fantastic wide receiver. They've got Antonio Gibson. So there's real talent on that roster. And I think to finish is at 6-11 is just really disappointing. They're probably my biggest disappointment of the season.
Yeah, they finished 7-10. They're one of my biggest disappointments of the season too. I mean, they drafted Diami Brown, who I was convinced was going to be a really, really big guy this year, and he only got 165 yards. J.D. McKissick continues to be a big part of that team, former Lion running back. As a dual threat. I don't know, this team, I mean, Curtis Samuel was going to be, a massive part of that team, and ended up not being because he moved, didn't he? Or no, hang on. No, he was injured for large parts of the season, I beg your pardon. So, it's a team that I think is set up for the future, but they need a quarterback badly, and I expect them to draft one this season. Just take a swing.
Big time.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else we want to mention there? So, I mean, the Eagles for me are the surprise of the year. I think everyone had them penciled in as a team that could easily be at the bottom of the NFL, really. And you have a look at what they have on offer, and it's not flashy, is it? It's still forever going to be in the trenches, but that's what did it for them in the end of the day. They're
kind of like the Indianapolis Colts of the NFC, just like very boring, but kind of just about get the job done.
But you say very boring, but are you asking me whether I'd like to watch their former quarterback, who's now in Indianapolis, or Jalen Hurts? And I'm like, I'd take Jalen Hurts every day of the week. Like, at least the guy has a bit of something to it.
But even he's probably the most boring dual threat quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, you're probably right. But, yeah, there's no arguing with that. He rushed for 784 yards this year, which led the team. He had 30 more rushing yards than Miles Sanders.
I've got a soft spot for the Eagles because their fans are so demented. But like, just I just love the fact that their fans are just nuts. But yeah, I mean, the Eagles were a team. Like, I don't think anyone wanted to see any NFC East team in the playoffs, really, other than the Cowboys to lose, which they did. They didn't disappoint there. So yeah, this last season, this division was like the worst in the NFL, and I kind of think it still was. But just the Cowboys somehow came out of it smelling the roses, probably largely thanks to their defense. Although CD Lamb had a very good season and looks an absolute player.
Well, we're about to come on to the worst division in football, and I'll tell you how I'm measuring that in a minute. But just to finish with the Giants. Yeah, see, I have no thoughts on the Giants. Shit organisation. Let's move on.
When I think of the Giants, all I can think about is that run where Daniel Jones was running and then he just fell over. That's all I can think. I just keep thinking of that.
Even though it was a season and a half ago, it's the defining moment in Giants history.
Seems like yesterday.
You've got the helmet catch and you've got that run, and those are the two Giants plays I remember.
Oh, and Kenny Galladay's loads of touchdowns. I remember those.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't actually.
No, he has the same number of touchdowns as Matt Nelson this year, so that's fun. Figuerez70 says that in the Twitch chat, Eagles are in a great place. I mean, 3 first-round picks, all about midway, dangerous. Yeah, absolutely. They are going to be a force next year, given the fact that Sirianni's... I mean, I thought that Sirianni was potentially the worst head coach hire this session.
I think everyone did, yeah.
Not close. Not close. And Dave Culley as well at Houston's really unlucky to get fired.
Do you remember Sirianni did a press conference and he just like couldn't speak to the media and it was just like cringeworthy, and I was like, this guy's going to last like 7 games, and he's just been like really good.
It was like watching Bob Quinn if Bob Quinn decided that he couldn't speak. Yeah. Like, oh my God, it was awful. Right, the NFC North, the worst division in football. And my metric for that is that it's the only division in football without 2 teams above 500. Which is amazing to me, really.
And it's got the worst 13-4 team in NFL history as well.
Fuck the Packers. They finished 13-4, as you say, and the Minnesota Vikings 8-9, Chicago Bears 6-11, and the world famous, clearly as we're here, world famous Detroit Lions 3-13-1, the best 3-13-1 team there has ever been in the NFL, because they are the only 3-13-1 team in the NFL. I think.
Is that Scorigami?
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, so we've talked at length about the NFC North all the way through the season. Let's go through it very, very quickly. The Packers are shit, Minnesota are shit, Chicago are shit, and Detroit are awesome. So
I think you've said it all there. Yeah, and I mean, the Packers' soft underbelly was once again exposed in wonderful fashion. God bless the 49ers for exposing the arse cheeks of the Packers special teams on national TV. It was wonderful. It was one of my favourite playoff moments. The sourness of Rodgers' face. I mean, like, I just hate that greasy mullet. I've said before, in terms of like a left tackle and quarterback haircuts, Bakhtiari and Rodgers do have the worst haircut combination in the entire NFL. It's just revolting. Rodgers is an arse. I don't like the Packers. Their defense is boring. Their special teams are awful. Their offense is overrated. And long may they burn in hell.
I will say one slightly positive thing about the Packers, and it's only because the player I'm about to speak about is a free agent, and I hope we sign him, and that's linebacker Devondre Campbell. Picked him up off the scrap heap, all pro. I want that guy.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Can I just also say, and this is controversial because I aired this view in our Discord chat, and received some pushback on my views, but John St. Brown's half and half Green Bay Lions top that he wore for the Packers-Lions game is the worst thing I've seen with my own eyes this year. It was shocking, and we all know where this ends up. It ends up in a half and half Man U Liverpool scarf, and we know that that's a road we don't want to go down. So boo to John Brown's half and half top. It's a shocker.
I would happily go to a pub with you watching the United-Liverpool game with myself in a Liverpool shirt, you in a United shirt. We'll have a few drinks. Whoever wins, we'll have a go at the other person. It'll be a great time, and it will be good. If we both turned up in a half and half shirt with one half on one person, one half on the other person, I'd hate you and me for the rest of our lives. So, yeah. It was an abomination. I really didn't like it. What we've got to do is sign Equinemius in this off-season, even though I don't want him, just to get the St. Browns on side.
He's really not very good.
No, he's really not very. He's quick. That's it.
Yeah. No thanks.
Yeah. So, in summary, the Packers are trending downwards, the Minnesota Vikings are trending downwards, the Chicago Bears are trending downwards, and the Detroit Lions are the the 2022 NFC North winners. This is actually what I'm calling, by the way. This is not just some throwaway comment. The Lions are winning the North next year.
Absolutely. And my worst moment of the year was seeing the Browns half and half, some Browns half and half top. One of my favourite moments of the year was the off-camera mic on the Bears sideline when Matt Nagy had got that golf visor on and he was disputing some bullshit call, and he was just like absolutely going mental. And the announcer said, after further review, and at that point, someone in the crowd shouted, "The Bears suck." And that was possibly one of the best moments. And I know the guys from the Bear Down Report, who are good pals of ours, enjoyed that as well. So, yeah, that was definitely a moment of the season.
Actually, they are the best part about the Bears. There's not any other good parts of the Bears, but Bear Down Report are worth it. Whenever we face the Chicago Bears, they come on, they got good crack, they don't take themselves too seriously, they give as good as they get. I love those guys.
I give Ryan Dangle terrible abuse on WhatsApp during Bears games, and he still hasn't blocked me. It's amazing.
Excellent. I love it. Right, let's move on from this worst of the NFL division, the NFC.
South?
Well, I mean, I was going to try and make a pun about least or worst or whatever about the North, but I can't think of a pun. Anyway. Steve O says 2023 NFC North champions. I like it. No, my man. 2022 NFC champions. I know that it finishes in 2023, but it's a 2022 season. We are winning it this year. 2022 right now, we are winning this year.
Let's drink some early Kool-Aid pre-draft.
On the booze, and it's not having any effect because I will say the same when I'm sober, which is never on this podcast. NFC South. So we have the Tampa Bay Bucks winning the division handily, 13-4, which led the NFL along with Green Bay. The New Orleans Saints second, 9-8. Atlanta Falcons 7-10. Carolina Panthers 5-12 after a 3-0 start. And I want to start with the Panthers actually because Joe Brady is one of those guys knocking around for OC jobs right now. And you have a look at just what's happening in that organization. Matt Rule determined to make it as bad as possible over there by the looks of it. The trade for Sam Darnold has gone awfully. They started PJ Walker for a game. Cam Newton came in for 5 starts and didn't win a game. I mean...
And was generally a dick.
Yeah, McCaffrey started 7 games and then went out injured again. Chuba Hubbard was perhaps one of the few bright spots of that team. Amir Abdullah played 11 games for them this year.
Poor Panthers. Yeah, the Panthers are garbage. They're that's like 5-12, but they could have been, 2-15. They were just terrible all season, and you kind of a bit like Saquon Barkley at the Giants. You kind of wonder about McCaffrey and his future because he's just been injured so often. Such a good player. No one wants to see him on the sideline, but you do kind of wonder about his longevity. Bearing in mind his injury history and the fact that the Panthers are kind of so dependent on him.
Yeah, massively dependent on him. And I mean, it was Mike Davis last year, wasn't it? Came in and actually had higher average yards per carry. And everyone thought, well, McCaffrey is just not that good. And then you see what happens to them when he's not in the team. Like, just because your starter gets less average yards per attempt than your backup does not mean the backup is better. It means that the defense is responding to the biggest threat on the field. Like, if McCaffrey is getting less, that's because Robbie Anderson is getting less attention. Like, everyone likes to view things in isolation. Mike Davis did not get the attention that McCaffrey got. So,
yeah, I mean, the Panthers just have to sort their quarterback situation out because it's just a dumpster fire. They've got to sort it out.
Yeah. how about the rest of that NFC South then? Tampa Bay, they are teetering on the edge of either Super Bowl glory next year or worst team in the NFL, and I'm not really sure which way they're going.
I'm still unconvinced that Brady is definitely gone. I think there's still a chance that he might come back, but I mean the Bucs have just got a pretty solid roster all the way through, and I can't see any other team challenging them in the NFC South. I can't see the Panthers being anywhere. The Falcons, it feels like they've got like a long, slow road to kind of recovery, and their QB's not getting any younger. Matt Ryan's he's had a decent season, but he's not going to get, his arm's not going to get any better. Kyle Pitts has been decent, but not maybe the kind of game dominator that everyone thought he might be. And I know the tight end spot is notoriously hard to make an impact in the rookie year, so it'll be interesting to see next season. I think the Falcons' defense is just so bad that I can't see them challenging. And, the Saints have got a great defense, but it feels like their coaching staff is going to have a bit of a reshuffle. And who knows what's happening on their offense? It's, just all over the place. Michael Thomas, massive questions. Kamara's not really been effective this season. And, they've got a massive gaping question mark at QB. So it kind of feels like another bad division.
It does. It feels like a division which is going to have 4 bad teams next year for sure. I mean, no Peyton means the Saints are going to regress. It doesn't really matter who goes in there. They can't be as good as that. And if they do, it stains Peyton's career as much as anything.
But I think the Saints' job has got to be one of the plumbest jobs out of all the head coaching roles. But it's such a kind of kind of storied franchise in recent years, and if they can, the fans are super loyal. They've got a great stadium. It's just a notoriously difficult place to go and win. And like I said, they've got a fantastic defense. Even though, the offense has been garbage, there's still some talent on the roster.
Oh yeah, there's no doubting that, but how much of it they can return? I mean, they've got to take their medicine for a year, embrace the tank. That's where I'm at with them. Jameis Winston, he had a great year. 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions through 7 games. Like 5-2 record as a starter. If Peyton can do that to Winston, he's a genius, and he's going to the booth. Like, I hate it. I really hate it. Ian Book, I'm behind that guy as a starter in the NFL. Love that.
Yeah, I mean, Winston has not been particularly reliable over the last couple of seasons, and it kind of feels that they just need to, like, say for someone like Derek Carr, like the Saints would be a great landing spot for Derek Carr, because he is head and shoulders above everyone else they've got at the QB spot. The problem is Taysom Hill's on that crazy contract. What are they going to do with Taysom Hill now that Peyton's gone? Because that's kind of like he was Peyton's sort of baby.
I don't think he's on that crazy contract anymore. I think they've changed it.
I'm sure he's on a lot of cash.
Let me see. So he's got 1 year left on his deal, paying. I have to go to over the cap. It's a 2-year, $21 million deal. Oof. Taysom Hill, what's his cap hit going to be then? About 13, 8 and 13, I would imagine, something like that. I mean, to be honest, I think he probably might get cut. Let's have a look. That isn't what I want. Taysom Hill. So this year is his last year. Oh, they can't cut him. Cap number $12 million this year. Dead money 19. and then he's going to count against the cap for 12 million next year.
Not good for a backup QB.
No, actually, sorry, not 12 million next. Yeah, 12 million next year. I'm not going mad. Yes. It's not good. His over the cap valuation for last year was 5.3 million, but he counted 19 against the cap. No, sorry, 7.3 against the cap. My bad. 19 dead money this year. Anyway, I don't care about Taysom Hill, so I'm going to move on. The NFC West, to round out this look at the NFL. LA Rams, the Super Bowl chasing LA Rams, 12-5. Arizona Cardinals 11-6. San Francisco 49ers 10-7. Seattle Seahawks 7-10. The only division to have 3 teams to be 10 wins or better. It has an argument to be the best division in football as well. I mean, the Seahawks being the worst team in that division seems mad considering the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, the Seahawks are they've turned into like the boring team with not much offense, and the days of the Legion of Boom seem a long time away. And it kind of feels that Pete Carroll, is kind of like limping along. I'm not really sure where that franchise is going. And, unfortunately for them, in the meantime, they've been absolutely leapfrogged by the 49ers, the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals had a great season, but just seemed very, very kind of, I guess, fragile. And losing DeAndre Hopkins to injury in the second half of the season really seemed to have knocked their offense off kilter. Kyler Murray was brilliant at times, but also, made a lot of silly mistakes. And the defense just wasn't quite able to kind of carry them through when the season, got really tough. They kind of got away with it because they had such a good start. Was it 10-0 or 10-1 start they had?
So they lost their first game after, was it 7? Went 7-0, and then they were 7-1, 8-2, 10-3, 10-4, 10-5.
Yeah.
11-5. Yeah, so they lost a load of the games late, but they were 7-0.
Yeah, and I think the Cardinals were definitely one of the most fun teams to watch. But, the Rams, I think, have kind of got better slowly as the season's gone on. I think Stafford seems to have settled down now. Even in the championship game, we saw a couple of classic Stafford hang on to the ball slightly too long on third down and get sacked kind of stuff that kind of made me just cover my face just because I've seen it so many times. But at the same time, his arm was just like a laser for a lot of that match. And in Cooper Kupp, he's really obviously got some chemistry, and Stafford was just slinging it all through the playoffs, and to see him beat Brady's Bucks with that kind of, when they got pegged back and Brady came back and pulled it back to level, and then Stafford went on that last drive. It was just great to see. So the Rams have been a really good team to watch, and their defense is just mean. I don't think they're quite as good on defense as they think they are. But it's a top 5 NFL defense, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great team to watch, and I know that Ant hates McVay because he blames him for what happened to Goff, and I don't disagree, but just because the guy's an arsehole with how he deals with personnel doesn't mean that he isn't good at football. And this is what I think about Kyle Shanahan. What happened to the 49ers this year? The 49ers had no right to be as good as they were, but they rolled over teams better than them. They did it last year with backup quarterbacks as well. The team has consistently overperformed with him in charge. Now, I'd be looking
at backup running backs. They were on about their RB4 by the end of the season, and they were still getting yards on the ground.
Yeah, so if I was looking at anyone to blame in terms of top level guys, I'd be looking at Lynch. But then you have a look at the production they've had lower down, and it's like, no, this organization is allowed to be unlucky and still think that everyone in it is doing really well. In a one-off game, between two random teams and random coaches, Carl Shanahan would be up there for me in terms of coaches I would have as a fantasy coach. In situational football, he's exceptional.
Yeah, he's definitely got that team to overperform. I think when like Raheem Mostert went out at the start of the season, and I think they lost one of their wide receivers, and everyone kind of was already writing them off. Then bringing in Trey Lance, and that didn't really work out, and he clearly wasn't ready, and it kind of felt they were in disarray. But fair play to Shanahan. I'm not Shanahan's biggest fan, but he just absolutely calmly and coherently developed a winning game plan, and always found a way to win. And going to Lambeau Field in a snowstorm and grinding out that win against the Packers, just shows what a well-drilled organisation that they are. And it kind of also shows the Packers, flimsiness at the killer moment.
So Elijah Mitchell went, his 6th round pick this year, went for 963 yards. Deebo Samuel was converted to a running back for parts of this year. He led the team with 8 running touchdowns off 365 yards. So he didn't run far, but he was productive when he needed to be. They had 3 receiving threats who got above 820 yards this year. It was concentrated production. But Deebo Samuel got 18.2 yards per reception this year. This is a guy...
Deebo Samuel looks someone who looks like he could develop into one of... How old is he? Is this his 2nd season?
3rd, I think.
I mean, this is a guy who could be one of the star players in the NFL if he carries on developing. I mean, I can't think of anyone that's got more explosive ability in the entire league. I mean, is he better than Devontae Adams now? Kind of arguably.
No.
In terms of absolute sheer explosiveness, I kind of think he's up there with Devontae Adams.
I think the thing with Adams is that you can't have Samuel be the number 1 wide receiver. That's not his role. And that's okay. He's exceptional as being the best running back you have, and also the best wide receiver too you have. But he's not WR1. But with Adams, you can just, like with Hopkins, just target him every single play, and the defense can't stop it. Whereas I think it was shown last night that with Samuel you can have a plan for him.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that the Rams have got one of the best secondaries in the entire NFL.
Yeah. Okay, so instead of starting to talk about this game, why don't we start talking about the championship games? So we've talked about the NFL season. Let's move on to the championship games. We start sequentially. So Cincinnati Bengals at the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. The game finishes 27-24 in favor of the Cincinnati Bengals. And, I mean, to start with, it looked awful for the Bengals. So the Chiefs score a touchdown in their first possession, their second possession, and their third possession, and get out to a 21-3 lead with 5 minutes to go in the first half. It looked bleak for the Bengals early, my man.
Yeah, and I think one of the most telling things was, I don't know if you saw the footage at halftime as they went down the tunnel. Mahomes was pissed. He was really pissed because the Chiefs could have scored another touchdown just before halftime. And I think they ran out of time, and Mahomes couldn't call it a timeout in time, but he knew that they left points on the field. And that was really telling, because he wouldn't have had that reaction if he wasn't worried about the Bengals and their ability to come back. Because, the Chiefs could have killed that game, I think, with another score. But they just left enough for the Bengals. And, the Bengals just got better and better on offense as that game went on. And I think the key for me was Edwards-Helaire versus Joe Mixon, because I think in terms of the game in the air, both Burrow and Mahomes were able to air it out when they could. The difference that the Bengals had was when it came to needing some yards on the ground, needing to kill some clock, needing to build a drive, the Bengals could go to Mixon and he could get them a first down, or he could get them like a little 15-yard run. The Bengals were doing this thing where they were running on first down every single time and getting like a yard or two. And they were all, Burrow just kept walking into like a 2nd and 9. And it was so frustrating. But then it kind of almost kept their running game honest. And it meant that they could give the ball to Mixon. And at the same time, they could air it out and not to be thrown into like triple coverage all the time. And the fact that the Chiefs couldn't establish anything with Edwards-Helaire, he was getting nowhere. He couldn't really get in the game, and the Bengals, their safeties were just able to sit back and wait for Mahomes to throw the ball and just be ready. And the fact that Mixon was able to kind of keep that game rolling through the third and fourth quarter, I think was the kind of one of the game-defining edges that the Bengals had. I don't know what you thought about that, because a lot of people don't really rate Mixon, but I think he's a great little running back.
I think that Mixon is a better version of DeAndre Swift. Similar running back, more explosive in the pass game, but as a running back, is more productive for me. Gets more missed tackles, just is more productive. I really, really like Joe Mixon. In his first year, he was a fantasy monster because he just racked up the yards. Couple of down years. This year, he's really turned it on. And I really, really like him. I mean, I think there were just 2 moments that defined this game, apart from in overtime. The first was, as you mentioned, about Mahomes running out of time. But it's all Mahomes' fault. I don't know that, because it looks like Hill is the guy that the players designed for at the end of the first half. But Romo said it best. There's pass interference in the end zone with 9 seconds to play. It's 1st and goal from the 1 with 9 seconds to go. Romo says, if you're smart, you can get 3 passing plays here. And of course you can, because 3 pass plays taking 8 seconds, you have a second to kick field goal. Like, if it all goes to pot, that's what happens. But Mahomes managed to take 4 seconds on the first play and throw it into the ground because he'd shimmied left when he should have just thrown fast or thrown away. Suddenly, with 5 seconds on 2nd down, you're thinking, maybe I should kick it. But he goes for it and passes to Mahomes behind the sticks. Like, it's an absolutely brain-dead play. You cannot throw behind the sticks. You are throwing points away. And the only reason you do it is if you think that the defense are going to be committed to defending the end zone, because you cannot throw that play. And so you're kind of playing them at the chess match. Well, if that was what it was, they lost. And the game turned on that moment slightly. Gave a little bit of momentum back to the Bengals. Then the first 2 possessions, the Chiefs punted, which is exceptional in itself. But then the Bengals only go and get a field goal to make it 21-13, and at that moment you think, well, field goals just aren't getting this done. The second moment that the game turns is the interception by B.J. Hill. So, Mahomes drops back, tries to throw a little screen pass or something like that, and the defensive tackle just gets his hands up, grabs the ball, and puts the Bengals 27 yards from scoring a touchdown, which they do, and then they get the 2-point conversion to tie it up, and suddenly they've come from 18 back by the end of the 3rd quarter. And I mean, it's 2 moments in time, and the Bengals do throw an interception in there too, but it's one of those.
It reminded me of the Ravens' offense with Lamar Jackson when Lamar's trying to win the game on his own. The difference is, like, Lamar's got, doesn't really have many targets. Mahomes has got Kelsey and Hill and Mecole Hardman, who's a great wide receiver too.
And but they've got Pringle, and they've got someone else as well. Who's the other receiver they've got? They've got DeMarcus Robinson.
But it just felt like Mahomes had decided he was going to try and win it single-handedly with like a funky little shovel pass or some like moment of brilliance. And the Bengals are just there and waiting for him. Whereas they should have been able to run that ball in. But I just don't think they've got any confidence in Edwards-Helaire. He's prone to drops. Surely they should have, certainly with 9 seconds to go, they could afford to have run it on first down and just run it in.
No,
I mean, because
there's no timeouts. No timeouts.
The Bengals office was so spread out.
Yeah, maybe. If you're going to run it in, though, I like a quarterback draw rather than a running back play.
Or maybe that the quarterback draw is the fake. Maybe they fake the draw and go with the running back. I mean, Mahomes can pitch the ball out or shovel pass it, but I just don't think they had any confidence in anyone in the backfield.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that was their downfall.
And the Bengals they knew it. The Bengals knew exactly what was coming.
Yeah, they did. They read it very, very well. They get that stop, they get the interception, and then it goes to overtime with Kansas City getting their only points of the second half to tie up at the end. And I mean, crazy moment at the end. So you've got Tony Romo calling potentially for the Bengals to allow the touchdown so that they get the ball back and at least have a chance to win the game. And then Mahomes eats a massive sack on second down. To kind of push them way back and take them outside of touchdown range, really. And they're forced to kick the field goal. They then get the ball back on the coin toss, and Mahomes chucks up a punt on third down.
I mean, the reaction to the Chiefs winning the coin toss, I don't think I've ever heard a coin toss as loudly celebrated. It was as though, most of the stadium kind of thought that winning the coin toss was winning the match.
I certainly thought that.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to see bet against the Chiefs at that point. What I would say is fair play to. I would just single out Trey Hendrickson. Like, he chased Mahomes around the field just until he had nothing left. I don't know if you saw him after one. There was one drop back that Mahomes had done where he twisted and turned, and Hendrickson had just chased him halfway across the field. And then the camera cut to Hendrickson like leaning against like the dugout, just looking like he was just about to like throw up. But he just never let go. He never stopped chasing Mahomes, and the pressure that he was under on his dropbacks was kind of, you could see it was unnerving to him, because he knew that the Bengals secondary was absolutely waiting for the ball to go in the air.
I mean, the coverage that the Bengals had was exceptional. The stat I heard from PFF earlier today on their podcast was that Mahomes had suffered 4 sacks in this game. The average time to sack Mahomes was 9 seconds. I
was going to say it felt like about 10 seconds per sack. It felt like an eternity.
It's unbelievable. How can you cover for that long? There used to be a saying that was, if you can't get to the quarterback in 3.5 seconds, someone's going to be open. Well, they managed to do 2.5 times that.
There was one play where Mahomes dropped back, and I think Fate left, Fate went right, did a bit of a loop, and the Bengals secondary were not blitzing. And then one of their, I think it was like maybe one of their secondary, maybe Jesse Bates or maybe the other safety, just all of a sudden decided to like try and sack Mahomes, probably like 6 or 7 seconds into the play. And he made up so much ground and just like got a piece of Mahomes. And I think they lost like 8 or 9 yards on the play. It was just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that was a really, really good play.
And I'd just say the other thing is, because Mahomes was under so much pressure, and the scheme on defense was so tight, he did make a few mistakes, and there was a couple of times when Kelsey in particular was open and Mahomes just didn't throw to him, and that's very uncharacteristic.
Mahomes hasn't had a good year. Like, he's been good for normal quarterbacks, but he's been bad for Patrick Mahomes?
I think Mahomes has been brilliant for a lot of it, but he's just all of a sudden seemed fallible at times.
Yeah,
And
he's been
that's not like
human.
Mahomes.
He's
Yeah.
been human. Right, I just need to pop off for 2 minutes, but are you okay to just talk about LA versus San Francisco for about 2 minutes?
Am I just going to like freestyle?
Yeah, go for it. You good?
Okay, yeah, I'm good, yeah.
All right, okay, crack on. 20-17, the LA Rams are in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, out of the two games, this was probably a little bit more disappointing. Certainly, I was hoping for a more higher scoring game. I think, like most Lions fans, I was kind of conflicted with Stafford and how Stafford was going to play, and did we want to see the 49ers win so we'd get a higher draft pick? I'm very much in the camp, like, I love Stafford. Really sad to see him go, and I just want him to do well wherever he goes, and I don't really care if we get the 31st draft pick instead of the 28th. So I really wanted the Rams to win, even though Jalen Ramsey is just an awful human being. And I'm not a big fan of McVay either. But yeah, I mean, and the Rams kind of disappointed a little bit. It didn't really feel like we got the best performance. I think there were some key factors in that. Losing Higbee to injury really disrupted their rhythm. Cam Akers was out injured for a bit of the game, and again that disrupted them. But the Rams won very much through the defense. And looking back to the 49ers against the Packers, obviously it was special teams and the 49ers defense that beat the Packers. There just wasn't enough that the 49ers showed on offense. And I just never thought that the 49ers and Garoppolo would have enough to contend with that Rams defense. I just did not think that they'd be able to put points on the board. And the difference was that, Stafford and Kupp between them had enough offensively to take it. So, it was good to see that the Rams defense really stepped up and effectively won the game. But I certainly don't feel Stafford had a bad game. And I think he threw one interception quite early on when he kind of threw behind his Kupp in the end zone, and Kupp batted the ball up and it got intercepted. But it felt like Stafford had a good game, and I'm just glad it killed the whole Stafford can't cut it in the playoffs chat, which was very, very boring.
Yeah, I completely agree. The Rams had 120 more yards of offense. They should have won this game far more comfortably. But I think I was saying to you before we came on that it felt like the Rams got away with it a bit. We always knew that San Francisco were going to struggle to score. Debo and Mitchell were their two big threats who could do something. But they're doing it on their own without much help from Garoppolo, really. And
although Garoppolo made some big throws, he certainly aired it out on a few occasions and had a couple of decent long plays. So Garoppolo wasn't completely awful.
Yeah, and Steve O's just said Von Miller and Aaron Donald make it really tough to drop back for a pass. You're absolutely right. That kind of forces you to have a good run game, but the 49ers absolutely have that. So it's not exactly like that wasn't playing into the 49ers' hands a bit. And the most grueling stat to me is that the San Francisco team, along with Deebo Samuel, went for 2.5 yards a carry.
What did Kittle rack up?
George Kittle, 2 receptions, 27 yards, a touchdown.
Yeah, and I mean, for Kittle, that's really poor. I mean, you would expect him in a game like this to dominate. You expect him to rack up 60, 70 yards, and certainly a few more receptions than that. So the Rams did a very good job at stopping Kittle, and he's one of those players that kind of can be unplayable.
So Steve O's just said that Stafford was a dropped interception away from losing the game on that last drive. And I would counter by saying that was it Jalen Ramsey dropped a ball in the hands from Garoppolo the drive after that. So, it's it's one of those things.
There was a couple of near misses, yeah, absolutely.
And that's why they're defensive backs and not wide receivers, I guess. Mm-hmm. But there we go. Just on a personal note, I really wanted San Francisco to win. I really wanted Matthew Stafford to win. And I'm okay with that. Like, whichever team won, I was happy for some reason or another. So, it's okay. And now the Lions are picking between 31 and 32. One place doesn't make enough of a difference. If you were telling me wild card or Super Bowl, I'm behind that. I want them to go out in the wild card because those 8 spots could really make a difference. But 31 or 32, I'm going for Stafford. I want him to win. It would pay him back for all the shit he put up with here.
Big time. Yeah, big time. And a lot of the media were very quick to get on his back early on in the season with the Rams when things didn't start maybe as hot as he would have liked in Los Angeles. He had a couple of tough games early on. And yeah, there was some absolute nonsense chat. But I think what we've got now is a really good Super Bowl ahead for the neutral. I mean, I don't care whether the Rams or the Bengals win. I really don't care. It'd be good to see, 2 teams that, I mean, the Bengals haven't been in it for a long, long time. And I know the Rams were in the Super Bowl in 2017, 2018. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, if either team win, I'm not fussed. And I think it'll be a really good game for the neutral.
I've kind of secretly been supporting either the Bengals or the Bills all the way through. And, I mean, if the Bengals win, it just says to me that the Lions can do it. The Bengals, the worst team between 2019 and 2020 in those 2 seasons. The Lions 2 spots above them in how bad they've been. And yes, as Tai pointed out in the Discord chat, there's no Joe Burrow in this draft. I mean, like I was saying, the quarterbacks are much maligned in this draft, and someone may surprise you, but no one has the caliber coming in of a Joe Burrow or anyone like that. But it says that no matter how bad your team is, as long as it's bad enough with redeeming features, that you can turn it around quickly. Good drafting, good front office, and you've got hope. And the Bengals winning for me would be reinforcing of that.
Yeah, and I mean, Burrow is just, I think he's blown everyone away in terms of, first of all, how he's come back from the ACL injury. Secondly, with or without the ACL injury, he wasn't amazing in his rookie season. Like, there was a lot of mistakes. I know it was a bad Bengals team he was playing for, but when you think now, I think he's got the chance to be the first person ever to win the Heisman Trophy, the national championship college game, and the Super Bowl in 3 years. That's the feat that no one's done. I mean, that would be like amazing.
Yeah, that would be something really, really special. I don't know whether I want Stafford to win, but I really want Burrow to win too. Like, he's just a good story. A really, really good story. A little bit of Lions news to get to just before we look ahead to the Senior Bowl. And the Lions have a Pro Bowler. It's happened. So, Brandon Sharif is unable to participate due to injury. Jonah Jackson replaces him. He's the first... Actually, I need to find... Where was that? Someone posted a link, and I have no idea where it is. I think it's the first Lions homegrown guard to participate in the Pro Bowl for a long time. Or ever. I can't... I need to find I need to find the link.
Yeah, this is an unexpected bonus.
Yeah, that's really cool. He deserves that. So that's really good news for JJ. Right, let's move on to the Senior Bowl. And it's a shame that Ant hasn't materialised. I know he just messaged me saying he had an emergency and couldn't come on. I'm sure he's fine, but something else, I think. But anyway, the Lions are taking care of the American team in the Senior Bowl. And there's some really notable names in here that the Lions should be looking at come draft time. There's a few that I've seen us take in mock drafts. I don't know if you've been keeping up with it, Steve, because you've been away a little while, but how up to date are you with the draft coming up?
Yeah, like reasonably. I mean, I've been listening to some of the college podcast stuff, and I think I'm certainly aware of the situation in the top end of the draft. I think it's pretty obvious that it's going to be Thibodeau, Hutchinson, Hamilton are going to go in the first three. Would you say?
It depends whether people buy into the positional value argument when it comes to the safety. Because if you don't, he could go number 1, and if you do, he could go at 10. So, but he's definitely the game-breaking guy when it comes to this draft for sure.
So I don't know who is going to be on our roster for coaching in the Senior Bowl. Who in those sort of top 10 picks? I know there's is it Ridder as well?
The quarterbacks for us are Sam Howell, Bailey Zappi, and Malik Willis.
Okay, so Malik Willis from Liberty, he's the dual threat guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then Howell, I think, has got one of the better arms. So they're going to be two people. I don't know the third quarterback.
Bailey Zappi now holds the NCAA record for passing yards. He is projected to be around 4-round 5 pick. He runs an air raid offense at Western Kentucky. And I think he's everyone's favorite day 3 quarterback. So I think that's why they wanted him in particular. There's a few guys that really stand out to me as guys that we're going to have to look out for. Starting with the DBs, the first one that really stands out to me is Roger McCreary. I've got to kind of preface this with the fact that I have not seen a lot of these guys at all. But Roger McCreary is projected as a late to mid first round pick as a cornerback. And I've seen him more than once being linked with the Lions with our Rams pick late on. So it'd be interesting to see how he does in this one. You've also got Leon O'Neal from Texas A&M as a DB. He's also kind of been in that range. I know that Ash Soden, who I think is going to be coming on board with us as a blog writer, he is a Florida State fan, and we've got Jermaine Johnson II as an edge player who's his edge 2, I think, in this draft.
Is he the guy from Florida?
Florida, FSU. Yeah, so he looks like he could be a real force. We've also got Devontae Wyatt, so he's the defensive tackle 2 in this draft, I think, by the consensus. Who else is in this? We have got... So we've mentioned the quarterbacks. Then we've got
any of the big sort of wide receivers like Drake London or Olave or anyone like that?
No. So our wide receivers are headlined by Jalen Tolbert. He's the highest ranked wide receiver we have. He's probably going to go middle of the second. He's out of South Alabama. One of the favoured late round guys who's kind of projected between the 4th and 6th rounds, but a lot of people are really high on him. Out of Ole Miss is Dontario Drummond. So I'm going to take a good look at him as well. The other guy I should probably mention is one of the leading tight end candidates out of Coastal Carolina is Isaiah Likely as well. So he's going to be someone to look at. There's been a few people I've seen who said, I really want another kind of pass-catching threat in the tight end area, and I kind of could get behind that, to be honest. Kind of give Hawkinson some backup.
So what's the criteria for the Senior Bowl in terms of player selection?
I don't know whether you have to be a senior or whether you have to be declared for the draft. I'm not 100%. Michael Lucius says, I love Zappi. Worth a 3rd rounder, he says, which is much higher than the consensus on him. And yeah, Steve O rightly says the Lions had the choice of which roster they wanted to coach, and they chose them with Willis, Howell, and Zappi. It might be a clue that they're looking for one of those QBs. Zappi might move up to day 2 if he looks good at the Senior Bowl, and he likes Jermaine Johnson more than Thibodeau. So there's that. Just to compare it with the other roster that they have as well here. So the national team being coached by the Jets. And let's see who stands out to me to have a look at this. So the DBs, there's no one that stands out to me there. Neither the defensive linemen. Mike Rose at linebacker, worth a late round flyer out of Iowa State. Sterling Weatherford out of Miami or of Ohio. I know he's listed as a linebacker, but he's a safety, I think. And he's one of Ant's ones to watch. Chad Mummer, a lot of people love at linebacker out of Wyoming. Daniel Falele, the tackle, he's 6'9", 6'10", a tackle out of Minnesota, still very raw, but he's going to be really, really good, I think. The quarterbacks in this side of the draw are Desmond Ridder, Kenny Pickett, and Carson Strong. So arguably 3 high-powered quarterbacks there. Did have Hassan Haskins, but I think he's pulled out, the running back out of Michigan. Trey McBride, the tight end. Jake Ferguson, the tight end out of Wisconsin as well. I know he's been getting a lot of love. And then in the wide receivers, they've got a few that I really, really like. I'm going to start off with the guy I think who's going to go top out of these guys, which is Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. He's probably going to be a late day 1, early day 2 wide receiver. But then you drop down to the FCS and probably the best player in the FCS this year, Christian Watson, the wide receiver out of North Dakota State. He's actually risen upwards about 100 places in the last couple of weeks. He's 6'4", 6'5", and runs exceptionally quick. He's got really good hands, so I think he's one to watch. And then Romeo Dubs from Nevada. So he has been playing with Carson Strong, and they're on the same team. It's going to be interesting to see how they link up in this game too. Let's have a look at the qualification criteria for the Senior Bowl, because I don't actually know how the Senior Bowl selects players. An 8-month selection process, and then the players are invited to the annual showcase of College All-Stars. They scout a lot of people. It doesn't say anything about seniors, so I think it's just college eligible or declared players.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be like a fascinating to see the Lions guys in charge, and I'm just looking forward to. I mean, I've kind of been holding off getting involved in the college football scene and start talking about draft until after I always say, like, I'm not going to talk draft until the season, until the Super Bowl, because it just kind of feels like you're diluting your focus. But I can't wait to watch some of the college guys, and I think this is going to be a good little gateway drug to the draft season.
And just to reiterate the fact that the Detroit Lions podcasts are going to be there. They've got 3 cameras throughout all of the Senior Bowl. I'm very, very jealous of them and their access, but they're going to have a terrific load of content over this next 7 days. So go check them out, subscribe to them, see what they're going to do. They've also got the Lions Wire reporter, Jeff Risdon, who's appeared on this podcast and is a terrific guy. Both of him and Chris are going to be there, and someone else, I think, operating a camera. It's going to shed a lot more light on some of these guys than you'd otherwise get, and they're from the Lions, so do make sure to support them. That'd be really, really good. Okay.
I mean, if we got enough Twitch subscriptions, then it could pay for a Roar of the Lions trip to the Senior Bowl next year. I'm just saying.
Next year, or maybe the year after, more likely than not. But yeah, one day we'll get to go to Mobile, Alabama, and
yeah. I mean, hopefully, if restrictions continue to be lifted and we don't have any more COVID nonsense, then maybe a Royal Lions trip next season. There's certainly a lot of East Coast games for us to potentially go and see. I fancy a New York trip.
I fancy that there will be a Lions game in London, and I think there will be a Lions game on the East Coast, and then a Lions game in New York, in Detroit, that we can all go to. So I'm fancying.
Now we're talking.
Despite the fact that I meant to have exchanged on a house today, didn't happen. But There are certain things happening in my life which means my budget is going to be severely depleted, and yet this must happen. Must happen. Got to get your priorities right, and it starts in Detroit. So,
absolutely.
Right, that comes to the end of my plan stuff, man. Have you got anything you want to get off your chest about the Lions or about what's been happening in the NFL recently?
Are we too early to make a Super Bowl prediction, or is that next week?
Well, I mean, so we're going to do a Super Bowl preview next week, Monday, 7th of February. We're also going to do a 2021 NFL Draft Class relook. So that's the entire NFL Draft Class, not just limited to the Lions. We're also going to look at how the general manager has done here. So Brad Holmes, a bit of an in-depth review into how he's done so far in his first year. So we're going to preview it, but we can chat about it now. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to save my prediction for next week, but I am going to say I think, I just look at the Super Bowl and I don't want to see the names, the New England Patriots, the Green Bay Packers. These are just not people I want to see in the Super Bowl lineup. I'm even a bit bored of the Chiefs, even with Mahomes. So I think the Bengals against the Rams for the neutral, I think is a great Super Bowl.
I completely agree. It's the one I wanted. If the 49ers were there, it's worse. Infinitely worse. And I enjoy the Chiefs. I want them to be in every championship game going forward. But I'm not sure I want them to be in any Super Bowls. I don't know if that's a really weird way to put it, but they're exciting enough to get there, but I don't want them to become a dynasty.
I mean, I can't see Andy Reid's got that many more seasons left in him.
Really?
I mean, the guy looks like a walking heart attack.
Oh, that's mean. I mean,
Come on.
I agree, but, I wouldn't put it that way. Come on, man. If he actually drops down dead, you're going to feel bad.
I just said he looks like he doesn't look like someone who is going to be a dynasty for the next 2 decades. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, he was 2 hamburgers short of a fitness plan. Right. Okay. So, I've already let you know what the next show is going to be on Monday, but the Roar of the Lions College Football Podcast is ongoing. I don't know what they're going to talk about this week because I'm not on it, but I do know that the last 2 weeks they've talked about the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball for the Senior Bowl in depth. If you want to know about who we've got, who they are, and why we should be interested in them, you want to go back and have a look at those. They're available on YouTube. They're available on audio. They are long, but they are worth listening to. So please go and do that. You can also find us on our socials on Roar of the Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you want to do anything on Twitch, that's up to you. I'm just saying. The group for Facebook for worldwide fans is Detroit Lions Fans UK 1 Pride Worldwide. And on the web, the blog articles go up on roarthelionsuk.com. Ashley Soden, I'm hoping, is coming on board. And there's going to be a few other guys I need to get to in the next few days. But hopefully we're going to have a really good stable of writers coming up to this draft, really covering one of the most important events in Detroit Lions' recent history in the next few months. So it's really exciting stuff for us. Just remains for me to thank my partner in crime, Steve Collins. Hopefully you're back next week to break down the upcoming Super Bowl with me, my man. But good to have you on tonight.
Yeah, I'll be back next week for the Super Bowl. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Sounds great. Thank you to everyone for listening, to the guys on YouTube, to the guys on Twitch, especially for those subscriptions. Cannot thank you enough. You guys on the audio too, I haven't forgotten about you. Thank you very much.
Cheers to Superfan Derek.
Yeah, Superfan Derek. Love that guy. Right, we will see you for the College Football Podcast on Wednesday and the Roar of the Lions normal podcast next Monday for the Super Bowl preview. Let's go Lions, one pride.
Fuck the Packers. Niners special teams.